Hello Druids, welcome to the first episode of my new series, Cursed Hollywood, where I will be talking about the infamous curses that reign this land. From cursed bloodlines to cursed films, Hollywood is not short on tragedies. Today, we'll be talking about the curse of Superman and the misfortunes that have haunted its actors. It is said that the origin of the curse started with the creators of Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. I know you may be wondering, why would its own creators poison their own character out of spite? Wouldn't they be interested in benefiting from their own creation? Well, this all started when they sold their rights to DC Comics. DC Comics, as it was typical of the early days in the entertainment industry, swindled and screwed over the creators by only offering them $130 apiece to split between them in exchange for the copyrights of Superman. Unhappy, of course, with the end of their bargain, Jerry Siegel wrote a public declaration. The publishers of Superman comics killed my days, murdered my nights, choked my happiness, and strangled my career. I consider the executives to be economic murderers, money man monsters, and I, Joseph Siegel, curse the Superman movie. After nearly 30 years of suing and fighting to be rightfully and fairly compensated, in 1975, DC finally agreed to pay their lifetime pensions of $35,000 a year, as well as give them proper and due credit on the character. But those 30 years of resentment and bile are now pinpointed as the gestation pod for the curse. Although the first ever Superman, Buck Collier, enjoyed career success and doesn't appear to have been struck by the curse, in contrast, the man behind the Superman animation he starred in, the Fleisch brothers, fared worse. With their studio already suffering and their personal relationship in trouble, the brothers were tasked with making Superman for Paramount, but sought the prize themselves out of the project. Remarkably, the studio accepted their insistence on an inflated budget, and they were locked into a series of shorts they had no interest in really making. They've only made 9 of the groundbreaking serials, inventing the idea of Superman flying in the process. But their studio fell apart entirely, with a huge financial penalty, and their partnership ended shortly after. More relevant to the theorist on Superman's nefarious influence on actors is Kirk Alyn, the first live-action Superman, whose career was apparently destroyed by typecasting because nobody could see any character on him other than Krypton's last son. After his second serial in 1950's Atom Man vs. Superman, he worked on 12 more movies, receiving a credit for just 1. He lived to the age of 88, but he had no real career to speak of after donning the cape. And then came George Reeves. Reeves' compelling, tragic story began when he played Superman in 1951, kicking off his painful association with the character. Like Alyn, he was typecast, limiting his chances of other roles, but the curse took more from him. On June 16, 1959, just days before he was about to be married, he was found dead with a gunshot wound to his head and his own lodger beside him. A death that is often seen as suspicious in nature. Although officially declared a suicide, the evidence seems to point out to foul play. It is said that this may be because Reeves had been embroiled in an affair with the wife of MGM executive and Hollywood fixer Eddie Mannix. Conspiracies point out that there may have been involvement from the mafia and a string of unsolved murders leading back to Mannix, and the supposed deathbed confession of his wife and Reeves' former lover, proposed that there may have been something else to this. From there, as soon as things went bad for anyone associated with Superman, and they did, repeatedly, it was pinned on the same thing that took Reeves' life, the Superman curse. Lee Quigley was the youngest star affected by the curse. He played Kal-El as a baby in 1978 Superman and died at the age of just 14 thanks to solvent abuse. While another Superman actor, Richard Pryor, had his own struggles with substance abuse, he was also diagnosed with multiple sclerosis just 3 years after his appearance in Superman 3 and died of a heart attack. Somewhat more infamously, Superman from the same series of movies, Christopher Reeve, without the S, was left paralyzed from the neck down when he was thrown from his horse on May 27, 1995. He died 9 years later from heart failure as a result of his injuries. And while Marlon Brando's appearance in the first Richard Donner film is often held up as a symptom of the project's cursed nature, he also seems to have been struck down by the curse. His son was charged and imprisoned for the fatal shooting of his half-sister's partner and died young at the age of 49 after serving time in prison. Brando's other daughter, Cheyenne, who had lost her child after the murder of her lover, killed herself at the age of 25. But it isn't just the actors from the Superman franchise that have been marked with the hex. Later, the crew responsible for putting together the Superman Returns DVD were said to have absorbed the curse influence when one was injured falling down some stairs, one was mugged and assaulted, and one smashed into a glass window. Sure, in isolation those events may mean very little, but amplified by the dark romanticism of the curse, they seem to indicate that something more sinister is happening. And that's far from the end of the story. There's more. In the 1960s, John F. Kennedy was to feature in a comic with Superman when the titular star talked up his physical fitness initiatives. He was assassinated with the comic waiting to go to print. Superman's 4, Mariel Hemingway's sister, took her own life in 1996. Margot Kidder, who played Superman's romantic interest in the 1978 version, suffered bad neck injuries in a car crash, lost job opportunities, and had a psychotic break, and was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which led to her suicide. Lane Smith, who had played Perry White in The New Adventures of Superman, died of Lou Gehrig's disease, and Dana Reeve, the wife from Christopher Reeve, died at the age of 44 from lung cancer in 2006, despite never smoking. Professionally and personally, it is less of a tragedy than death, of course, but there are certainly some more eye-catching stories. Kate Bosworth, who appeared in Superman Returns, blamed the end of her relationship with Orlando Bloom on the curse quite openly. Other actors like Mark Pillow, who played Nuclear Man in Superman 4, saw their careers destroyed, but that might have something to do with his lack of acting ability being proven in the role, to be honest. And it's still going on today too. And famously, Dan Snyder had his own family tragedy, losing his daughter as he was making Justice League. Given the narrative around that film, that seems to have become a footnote, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that's how it ought to be. Snyder went through unthinkable hell, and there's a case to suggest that the curse has struck again. Jeff Loeb, who wrote Smallville, also lost his son to cancer. Also from Smallville, the actress Allison Mack was convicted 3 years in jail for her role in recruiting for sex cult NXIVM. The idea that this is down to the association with a superhero is as troubling as it feels unlikely. But in the greater narrative of this twisting tale, it's impossible not to mention. That isn't to say that every Superman actor has been affected. Dean Cain might have seen his notable roles dried up, and Brandon Routh likewise for a good while. But that has more to do with acting ability and the specific failure of a single movie, respectively. Tom Welling, Bob Holliday, and Henry Cavill have all thus far escaped the curse too. Wherever it came from, the Superman curse has carved a tragic swathe through Hollywood, and we can only hope it's come to an end now. So what do you think? Do you think Superman and its productions are cursed? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you like these sort of topics. Thanks for watching, and see you on the other side.